All right, if you're watching this video, you're probably in the early stages of preparing to get your MBA and you're vetting test prep companies for the GMAT, GMAT Focus, and you're ultimately deciding who you want to trust your prep to because it's a lot of time and a lot of effort and you want to make sure you get this right. So for me personally, I went with Target Test Prep. I feel like that they had me prepared at every step of the way. So I just wanted to make this short video in support of them and talking a little bit about my experience. And hopefully, you can take some wisdom from that. So as of this recording, it's about December 2025. I decided that I was going to pursue my MBA earlier this year. And ultimately, I decided that taking the GMAT focus was the way to go to demonstrate to schools that I can handle the quantitative workload required for their program. That's a huge part of convincing admissions to ultimately gain a spot in class. And I just went all out for it, honestly. So I want to talk a little bit about, my background and kind of my process, why I chose Target Test Prep, and go from there. And I'll hit on some interesting other things along the way. So first, my background. So I've spent my entire career up to this point in healthcare. So most of it's been in sales, but I've also got a little experience in pharma and patents. But I've mostly been in the health insurance carrier space for sales. And ultimately, I decided that, if I wanted to progress, I'm ready to take the next step, then getting my MBA was the best way for me to do that. So when I decided to ultimately pursue my MBA, I realized that I needed to take the GMAT. And I had an okay GPA. I was in STEM, so it wasn't like killer or anything. But I basically decided that, taking the GMAT was going to be a crucial thing for me. And I started in about March. I studied and I took my last exam in October. So it was about 6 months that I studied for it. It was a lot of work. My first test prep score first score before starting the test prep was a 555. So I just took it completely cold just to get a baseline. And honestly, when I got that score, I was like, wow, I have a long way to go. And, it's the improvement, I will say, it comes steadily. It's not always linear. I feel like you might make some sudden strides unexpectedly. Like for me, that was in verbal, which I'll talk about in a bit. But and then my final GMAT score, I ended up getting a 655, which is an equivalent to a 700, just above a 700, I think, on the original old GMAT. So when I started my preparation, I basically started doing GMAT Ninja, just videos, just trying to start getting in the habit, build the habits. If you've ever read the book Atomic Habits, that was a big, that was a big philosophy that I had in my prep. Like I just try to get, as corny as it sounds, I just try to get 1% better every day, like make small changes, be consistent with it. So, I was probably built this habit of studying for like 20 hours a week and I did that for about 5 to 6 months. There's ebbs and flows and motivation and skills and frustrations, but it'll come. So I did that for a little while just to build the habit. I found Target Test Prep and I just started doing it. I did the self-paced program and I found the verbal was what I was most nervous about, because when I took the ACT, like back in high school, that was my worst subject. So I was most nervous about that. I was very diligent in preparing for that, and I felt like Target Test Prep really set me up well there. After like a month, maybe even 2 months of studying verbal, I feel like that I was, consistently getting above 90th percentile, and it was regularly my best section on the exam. I feel like Target Test Prep does a really good job at getting you to recognize the question types that you're looking at. And then it just allows you to trust your critical reasoning skills that you've, been building your whole life to this point. I was nervous that those skills were going to be something I was lacking in, like I said, but I feel like being in the workforce and just reading books regularly, I feel like I was kind of passively building those skills beforehand, and I think the test or the course, target test prep in the verbal section, just taught me to focus on the right places. And just recognize the questions, take the right approach, recognize the problem types, such as like the conclusion, connecting it back to the premises, little things like that, little truths that you can kind of hold on to and work forward with. Like, I found that to be very helpful. Did I do anything before target test? So GMAT Ninja, I just did Quant with the GMAT Ninja. And then with target test prep, started working exclusively on verbal and Quant. So shifting to Quant, I worked on Quant for probably about 4 to 5 months, I would say. I would say the first 2 to 3 months, I spent a lot of time just working through the course. The first few sections I thought are very foundational. Like, one thing that they teach is that you got to get the easy questions right. Like, I'm a golfer. You gotta knock the short ones in before before you can start shooting low. And it's the same thing with this. Like, you gotta make the gimmies. You have to make the gimmies. And I felt like in the Quant section, just going through it, taking all the practice questions, practice exams, lessons, all that for the first handful, and ideally all of them for Quant, that's going to get you the best score. So I felt like it built a really strong foundation for me, but then I found it difficult just with some work, balancing, studying with work to basically take all the sections. So I eventually, when I got to the back half of my Quant prep, I had to prioritize, what sections am I weakest on, and then mixing in time practice. And then as I mixed in time practice, that was when I started to take the actual exam. So let's see, what aspects of the prep course made the most difference? I would say eventually it was the mixed practice. I would say mixed practice, and then as well, just like the repetition on some of the problems. So, like, for example, take rate problems, for example, just doing different iterations of those, because there's lots of little twists that can make a problem come out this way or make it come out that way. And I just thought that the repetition and then just reviewing my errors, like kind of the cliche advice that you get, but it really comes from the repetition and just having a good structure, which target test prep provided me. Let's see. So when I started getting into taking the actual test, that was where I started to hit a bit of roadblocks. So the first time I took the test, I actually fractured my finger on my writing hand 1 week before, or I think it was a week and a half before I took my exam. So I did what I could, but that, I didn't get the score I wanted, so I had to take it again. I took it 4 times in total. The second time, I had an issue at the test center. The proctor did not have working pens during the DI section, so I had to take that entire section without pens. The old ones I had ran out of ink, so that was a bit frustrating. Had to wait another 2 weeks. Took it again. Internet went out at the test center during the Quant section, so didn't get a legit score there either. And then the last time that I took it, I ended up taking it at a different test center. Checked the reviews, made sure everything, worked out, and that was when I got my 655 and everything was done. So in between each of those, I feel like I learned a lot about performance and staying out of your own head, which that was another thing I appreciated about the course, was that if you read the lessons that towards the back, I think it's like the section 30, 31, 32, it's all in one number. But basically, they'll walk you through like what kinds of things to focus on, like how to reduce stress in your life, like a lot of performance psychology sort of stuff. And I found that just being a little more intentional about incorporating those was very good for my prep. And ultimately it made the difference for me. So I feel like towards the end, I just did lots of mixed practice sets, got out of my own way, with some of the issues at the test center as well. Like, I even talked to Scott at Target Test Prep, and then a few others, I think, just in how to manage that, approach that. They were very supportive of me there, so I really appreciate that. And honestly, overall, just as I kind of wrap this up, I will say that, it was a grind. Like, this whole thing was a grind. and I had major doubts at certain points if I was going to do what I need to do. Like, do I need to pivot to taking like a, taking something else, taking the GRE, something like that. But ultimately, like, I stuck it out. The preparation worked out, and I got the score I wanted and then some. So I'm really pleased with it. And I think if you stick with it, you're going to be very pleased with yourself as well. Like, just keep pushing. You can do it. You'll get there. And, I think you should trust Target Test Prep with your prep work. So it did me well, and I think it'll do you well too. So just trust the process, as they say. So best of luck. Hope you get into the programs you want, and you can do it.